Hey everybody, John and T here of Momentom Collective in Nicaragua, post-artist residency, and we're very fortunate to jump into a conversation with the founder of Seeds. We are joined by Reiki Cordon, and he's coming in live from Bali. And Reiki, how are you doing, brother?
Doing really well. To correct a little bit of a pedantic element, I'm not necessarily the founder. I call myself the facilitator. That's what I'm called, because I didn't actually found this. No one really did. It's just my role to evangelize it, share about it, and talk about it.
Excellent. Well, let's go from there. Tell us a little bit about what Seeds is and how it's different than other cryptocurrencies, the ethos behind it.
Sure. So my focus for better part of the last decade has been about trying to figure out a different way of setting up a life for myself and for something that I'd be honored to bring my kids into. So at the beginning of this journey started off with permaculture, intentional communities. We ended up moving to Central America, buying up some land, and was going to grow our own food and just kind of create our own eco-village. And that was kind of the solution that we felt was, civilization wasn't going the way we wanted it to. So we'll just, cut out our own little island paradise and try to do something different. So that's a long rabbit hole. We're not going to go down that one. But that's generally the same idea that we brought to Seeds, is we're looking at what is the foundational problems with our civilization, like what's causing us to destroy our natural world, what's causing us to force people to do things they don't want to do in order to make a living, And if we look at the foundation of this, it's our financial systems and how they operate. So if you can think of civilization as kind of having its own tech stack, it starts with agriculture, which is a different type of an element, which if you look at a lot of the civilizations that have failed in the past, they've all failed because agriculture failed. So I'm sure a lot of people listening to this understand about permaculture and the need for setting up permanent, resilient, healthy, organic food systems. But on top of that, our agriculture system is always a financial system. Like, how do people within that civilization exchange value? Where is value generated? How is it directed? What motivates human behavior to do certain actions? So that's where we decided we needed to start, which is financial systems. So I know that's a little bit like, abstract for most people and a little bit just confusing on how, financial systems actually work, but this is where we needed to start. And this is what Seeds is about. It's an alternative financial system that's designed to create a regenerative civilization. So a lot of other cryptocurrencies are not really even designed like currencies. We don't need to go down that route. The main idea is, how do we create a bridge that helps us get from where we're at today with how we're used to exchanging value into a place where we can create a healthier civilization where we're exchanging value in a more rewarding way, where the people have a voice and our planet is being healed through our actions. So it's the main intention behind Seeds. Mm-hmm. And did that answer the question, or did it, create time?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it'll just be opening up more branches and planting more seeds for conversation here. So what do you feel like are some of the main issues with traditional currency as it is?
So we have a couple of papers about this. So you're asking a question that usually requires like 60 pages of answers, but let me dive into some of the quick ones. First, our current financial systems require endless growth because money is made with debt and interest. It requires that we constantly make more money just for it to maintain itself. So if interest is, say, like 3%, then we have to grow by at least 3% every single year just to not go into bankruptcy and default and crash. Which means that every year we have to find more and more things to turn into money. We have to keep converting our natural world into, money. So we have to take our forests and turn it into timber. We have to take whales that are swimming in an ocean and turn them into meat. We have to take things that were once free and convert it into money. So this is what our current financial system requires just to survive, is this endless growth on a finite planet. So that's the foundational problem with our current money system. Second is the people don't have any voice. So you could see central banks today, they're making trillions of dollars, and where's this money going? Like, the people don't even have a say if that money is going to get made, where it's distributed. It generally goes to myopic short-term interests and to a handful of people. It doesn't go to the welfare of the people at large. And this financial system, it subsidized oil and gas industries by $5.4 trillion in a single year, to make them cheaper than renewable energy. So while we're dealing with our climate crisis today, rather than financing the alternatives that are going to heal our planet, we're actually financing the exact problem that's causing this. You know, and just last point on this is the UN said it would cost $50 billion to end world hunger. There's also another study that says it would take $200 billion to plant the 2 trillion trees required to sequester carbon, reserve certification, all this stuff. So it would cost $250 billion to essentially solve one of our biggest climate crisis problems and end world hunger, which is a fraction of the amount of money that we just created right now to purportedly deal with coronavirus. Created like almost $3 trillion. And none of that money went to those types of endeavors. But anyway, so the idea is that the people don't have any voice. They don't have any say in how our money systems are set up. And it's not going to things that actually benefit humanity. It's going to things that benefit a very few number of people.
Right. And one of the foundations of Seeds is that it's governed and dictated and a kind of open discussion between some of the main people that are involved with it, correct? The main
Not just the main people that are involved, but it could be anyone. So it's open for anyone to become what's called a citizen, which just means you got to show up, you got to add some value, you got to show that you actually care about the system, and that has its own process. It's very easy. But if you become a citizen, then yes, you get to participate in all the governance and evolution of the system itself.
And how is, like, without going too far into some of these rabbit holes, but for someone that doesn't know too much about cryptocurrency is also based on growth of having more people needing to get involved, just like traditional currency, is it not? You're kind of looking for that growth for the value of the currency or the coin to get more people involved so that the currency is worth more. It's more tangible. Is Seeds based around some of the same concepts in that?
So when you say cryptocurrency, there's an endless number of designs based on how they could be economically set up. So there's no catch-all way that cryptocurrencies are set up. So we're gonna have to like kind of remove that. But yeah, a lot of cryptocurrencies are designed just to increase in value, just as speculative instruments. They don't necessarily offer a lot of value to the people who are using them. And unfortunately, there's a lot of scams and weird things happening. So I can't speak to cryptocurrencies in general because there's too many different type of economic models within, standard cryptocurrencies. So I can't really compare them, what's different with Seeds versus all of them, but I could speak to, what's unique within Seeds, or I could speak to, some of the problems with the major ones. So, you could kind of tell me which way you want to go, how you want that one answered.
Let's keep talking about Seeds.
Yeah, so most cryptocurrencies don't actually give the voice right over to the people who are governing the system to be able to evolve it. And even if they did, the majority of the ones that are giving voice are doing it based on just how much of that currency you own. So in effect, what they've done is they created oligarchies and plutocracies, which is governance by the wealthy. So if you can afford to buy more of that currency, you buy more of a voice, and then you get more voice and you do things to get you more currency, and et cetera. So this tends to concentrate that voice and value over time, which is what we're seeing happening in a lot of crypto systems, is they just concentrate wealth and value. So if we wanted to actually create a renaissance, so taking a step back, here's a concept that we're focused on with Seeds versus a lot of cryptocurrencies. What we've been calling cryptocurrencies is a revolution. So most of them are a revolution, which a revolution is just a revolving of the power structures. It's the same paradigm, but there's another group in power. And that's kind of what we saw with Bitcoin. It's the same wealth concentrating system as the one that we're in right now, but now it's the programmers and the libertarians and people who figured out about Bitcoin first that's going to be the new elite class and worth trillions and billions of dollars, right? So Bitcoin's a revolution. It's just the same structure, different group in power. But what we're trying to do here with this technology is create a renaissance, which is a dismantling of the paradigm and a rebuilding of a completely different paradigm. So it's not a changing of the power structures, it's a recreation of how power actually works, how we distribute power. What does that look like? So that's the potential within this movement, is for us to entirely rethink how value is distributed within a society. So yeah, I guess maybe that would describe the difference between Seeds and what is currently being set up.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I went to business school, and even in economics, there's a lot of aspects that I didn't agree with. There was always the main aspects of economics 101 and trade is that you're never taking into consideration the environmental impact of only growing bananas here, only growing oranges here, trading, and then, there's no, yeah. So how does Seeds, or what are some of the projects that Seeds looks to include the environmental scope within a currency and within the concept that is Seeds?
Sure. So I'm going to answer this in two ways. First, our current economic systems are terrible at actually giving things that are beneficial for humanity. It really only looks at money, and it considers the market to be the all-powerful tool. So if things are worth money, then they're important. But the problem with this is then a cancer patient is worth more money than a healthy person, right? So it's actually better for our economic systems to have more sick people, more people in prison, more things being destroyed. It's really good for our economic systems to have warfare, because that blows up a bunch of stuff and requires that we have to create new things. We got brought out of the Great Depression in the early 1900s because of World War II. So that's just how insane our current economic systems are, that these things that are, objectively bad for humanity could be good for our economic model. So that's something else that we want to address. But then talking about seeds. So in our current financial systems, we're able to create money. So that's what we're currently seeing today. We're creating trillions of dollars. We're not having an idea of how that money is being distributed. Seeds wants to do the same thing. It wants to be a better currency, which means it's more stable. So that's one of the problems with Bitcoin. It's too volatile in price. For you to be able to price your goods in Bitcoin, you would have to keep changing it every single moment. Or for you to have a dependable idea on how much Bitcoin is going to be worth. So we wanted to actually fix that and say, how do we create something that's more stable? So what we do is, as there's more demand, and this happens later. So there's two stages in seeds. There's the stage we're in right now, and then there's a stage in the future where it's going to behave this way. But we kind of express this idea. And it's intended to be more value stable. And how we do that is, if there's an increase in demand for that currency, we grow more supply. So we're creating more currency to meet that new demand, so the price of it remains stable. And then how we spend this new money that we're giving out is what makes seeds regenerative, because we get to track contributions, and contributions within seeds could be a huge number of things. And this is what we're working on right now, is how do we actually track ecological change? Like, if people are doing beneficial things for their environment, we can just give them money out of this currency, right? So this will be, again, like the Federal Reserve's creating trillions of dollars. It could say, like, hey, you know what? We're just going to pay people who are out there planting trees. We need to plant trees. We want that to happen. We're just going to pay you to make it happen. That's what's possible within seeds. We have this money that's being created, and then we as a collective get to decide how that money is being spent, what we consider a contribution. So within seeds, we consider it a contribution when you're actually using the currency to make payments. So what we've done with seeds is that there's no fees to make a payment, but the more you use it, the more you're contributing and the more you can earn of this new money. So we've made the first better than free currency, where there's no fees and it actually rewards you for using it. So we also consider community building a contribution to society. So if you're helping people understand about seeds, you're putting on events, you're like sharing the message, then you could get paid for doing that. Anyway, this is a huge rabbit hole that we can go down. But the idea but we actually say, how is an organization being regenerative? So we have a regenerative score. So if an organization's doing good things for the world, it can earn some of this money as well. So kind of reverse the entire idea of a charity system today, where we've got these organizations who are doing really, really beautiful things, but they constantly have to be begging for money, when our current money systems are creating trillions of dollars that could be going to them, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what we want to do, is we want to have the organizations that are doing good things in the world, for them to just get paid for doing that, because that's what our world needs, right? And this is where we get into one of the questions you asked before the show, is like, how to reward the artists and the healers. And we have this huge problem within our current money systems, where healers have to ask for pay for giving their gift and service, and they don't like doing it. I can't even think of how many workshops I've seen here in Bali where it's like, change your relationship with money, learn how to charge your price, and it's not human for us. Like, we have a gift, we want to give it, we don't want to have to extract something out of them in return. It ruins the entire notion of the gift in our mind.
Putting a price tag on your art is always challenging for everybody.
Yeah, how do you put a price tag on that? And what it's done is, now we're giving all our healing and our art to those who can afford it. So it makes sense in that paradigm where we're just serving those with money, but then the people who really need it, who we probably really want to give it to, like, we just choose not to, right? So how do we completely rewire this? And this is something we're working on right now. It's called gratitude tokens. So here's a concept I want to throw out there.
Sorry, I think a lizard just landed on my head.
Oh, that's perfect.
I feel like that's a sign from God. Okay, he's on the floor.
Okay, sorry, continue.
Oh no, that's great. No, I love it. And there's one little baby one running around right there. So there's a concept that we're playing with right now. We call it a gratitude token. And what it looks like is every member within that system. So you can see every member within Seeds might get 100 gratitude tokens at the beginning of the month. What this does is everyone gets the same amount, and you either use it or you lose it. And then what happens is that you can give out that gratitude. Now someone, does an art piece and 10 people are grateful for that. And then they can just share some gratitude with them. Someone comes and gives you a back massage and you really feel grateful for that. You can send them some gratitude, right? But this gratitude, it's not money for you. So if you give it to someone else, you don't lose anything for giving it away. In fact, that's the only way that it's valuable. And it's the same way with gratitude in our current system. If I'm holding on to my gratitude in my mind, like it kind of benefits me, but it's not benefiting the person that I should be sharing that gratitude with. And then what this does is that all that gratitude is then distributed. And at the end of the month, part of the seeds that we're creating, the actual value token that we're creating, is then given out to those people who have received gratitude. So what we do is we completely change it. Now people who want to go and heal people, they don't have to just go find people who can afford it. They can go and give health to anyone within that system that has gratitude, because they all have gratitude to give. They don't have money to necessarily pay them, and you don't have to think about that. So these are ways that we can just rewire how we distribute value within our system, because we still need healers to be able to get money, unfortunately, in this paradigm, in order to buy food, put things over their head. So they still have to earn value, but how do they earn value without having to necessarily charge for it? How do they earn value without only serving those with money? They can serve anyone who actually needs the gifts that they have. So, yeah.
Very interesting. Currency with intention, for sure. Do you see this being a soul currency? Is this going to be better to be more of a supportive currency? Do you see seeds being something as a standalone, dependable model?
So monocultures are never healthy. So I think you understand that concept as well. And that's probably one of the biggest problems that we have in our current financial system, is the monocultural idea. Like every nation state has their one currency, right? So even right now, I've kind of talked about two different ones. We have seeds, which is its own medium exchange, traditional, fiat currency looking token. But then we also have this gratitude token, which is a completely new concept that we can bring into it. And where that road ends is endless. We can come up with all sorts of different types of, value and voice tokens that we can use to exchange. So even within the seeds universe, there's a lot of ways that we can create different tokens to exchange value. So it's not just a monoculture, it becomes more of a resilient polyculture of a value exchange. But seeds is something that's voluntary, and I don't know if it's going to attract everyone in the world. We're paying for things, we're paying for regeneration, which is less money that we can just pay businesses for continuing doing what they're doing today. So it's unfortunate, but the seeds model could be used to actually exacerbate our current financial system, where, they have people who take control and then they make more money for more control that they have, and I can imagine that systems like that are going to pop up too. So I think in the future, we're going to see a huge diversity of different currencies and tokens and value exchange metrics. I think what we're currently seeing is the nation states with their current money systems, where this monoculture is being broken down. Nature hates monocultures. It always goes to try to fight them and resist them and bring back diversity. And that's kind of what's happening with this movement. So I don't see seeds ever being the one currency to rule them all. It kind of just defeats the purpose. Now we're back to a revolution, not a paradigm shift. But it could be, and we're definitely hoping for it to be and designing for it to be a better currency for anyone who exchanges value, because now you have more voice and you get more value for doing it, easy. But more focused towards the ones who are doing good in the world, who are caring about regeneration, who actually want to use some of their collective wealth to heal our planet, to set up food systems and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the bias. And, unfortunately, not every human cares about that stuff. So, they wouldn't really be attracted to the system, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what do you think is the biggest challenge right now facing seeds and its integration?
I don't know. I know the biggest challenge overall is going to be resistance from the current power structures. So that's kind of where I also keep my finger on the pulse. And some recent legislation, or at least suggestion for legislation from the Financial Services Board, which is this huge conglomeration of organizations that come around to try to look at currency systems and what the threats are to their financial system, et cetera. And they pointed out that global stablecoins, which is unfortunately what seeds currently would fall under a category as, would be a threat to the current financial paradigm, which obviously, that's the point. The whole entire idea behind this movement is that it replaces that paradigm. But now they're recognizing that, they're seeing it, and they're putting out, suggestions that nation states outright ban all of these tokens. So I think that might be our biggest risk factor coming forward, is that, the old paradigm completely tries to ban it and make it illegal and say you can't use it. So that's something that we're working on. And it's also another reason for the complete decentralized nature of seeds. So not only is it more equitable for the citizens to be in direct control of it, and for HIFA, which is an organization that I'm a part of, to not own seeds and not to be able to control it directly. I think that's just a better model for society to be built on, but it's also really practical and pragmatic, because now if a nation state says this is illegal, we want to ban it, there's no one to come after to say shut it down and stop it, which is important. And this is why Bitcoin even survived today. If Bitcoin wasn't fully decentralized, it would have got shut down. But the reality was they couldn't shut it down. So they're just like, well, how do we incorporate this into our reality now? And this is the same way we want to set up seeds, is that once it gets to that point where the old paradigm's like, hey, we want to shut this down, that there's not necessarily a way that they can do that. I know this might sound a little bit revolutionary, and anyway. So then on top of that, the other partner that we just come in with is the fully decentralized internet, which is the other thing. That's the last, I think, piece of this entire puzzle, is if we're using applications that require an internet, well, nation states could shut down your internet, which is, happening all across the globe right now. But one of our recent allies, they set up a decentralized internet that can't get shut down. So I think that's really phenomenal to build this on top of it, because that makes it an entirely resilient ecosystem where, it is directly by the people, and there's not really much that the old power structures can do outside of like a thermonuclear war actually destroying their internet architecture, which wouldn't serve them either, of being able to disrupt this. So that's more the, how do we defend against it? But what we really hope for is that even those people in power don't want to be destroying our planet. They don't think that the current financial system is necessarily serving our world either. And we're really hoping that when this system starts thriving, they actually look at it as a viable alternative to the current problem, rather than as an existential threat, which they might currently see it as. Yeah, so it's like the biggest problem, but maybe the one that's less, you guys are less concerned about.
Yeah, you've been discussing the new world, the new paradigm. And in one of your other videos, you'd mentioned the definition of crisis in Chinese being danger and opportunity, those two words coming together. And I really found that really interesting and really good mindset to be in, to see a crisis as an opportunity. So what do you see as the most exciting part of this opportunity that we're in with COVID-19?
Yeah, wow. 2020 has just taken me by a complete surprise. For a number of years, there's been a lot of like mystics and sages talking about 2020 being the golden decade, and this is like the time where humanity is going to shift, etc. And I always felt like, okay, yes, like throughout 2020 we're going to make the shift and it's going to happen. I didn't realize that like starting right at the beginning of this year, it would just go like really intense and basically put all of humanity on a timeout. So I think the big opportunity here is that we've stopped. We've been running on this course that wasn't serving us, that we're basically driving towards the edge of a cliff just because we all felt like we needed to, right? And what this opportunity is that we've all taken a moment to just stop, relax, and say, hey, okay, how do we redesign things? And now everyone's talking about not going back to normal. It's a really beautiful, discussion to be having right now. So we've been giving a really, the opportunity is that there's two different ways. Well, there's probably a lot, but there's a couple different ways that we can go from here. We can try to go back to the new reality that the current paradigms are trying to suggest, which is more control measures like central bank digital currencies, like, now we're actually tracking you, like forced vaccinations and all these weird things that about, applying more control methods to try to fight this problem. Or we can go down another path where we look at the current systems and say, these aren't serving us anymore. There's viable alternatives here. There's a new money system. There's a new way of setting up society. There's a new way of governing ourselves. Okay, so maybe we can actually walk down this path instead and actually solve this fundamental crisis that we're having, rather than trying to throw more control and band-aids at it. So, we're having this discussion before about the need to set up new financial systems, and people kind of got it. They're like, yes, we understand it's a problem, but maybe it'll be a problem for me in the future. But now it's a problem for most people right up in their faces. This financial crisis that's happening right now is it's too much for most people to resist and say, okay, actually it's a problem for me today. Now I'm ready to make a change. Because unfortunately it does take, having a really big problem right in front of you in order for you to make that change. And so that's the crisis, is that huge monumental problem is here. The opportunity is now that we can step into something new. So on the seed side, this has been just a massive roller coaster for us, because we're planning on like slowly rolling out seeds over time. And we're talking with a lot of different organizations and bioregions and people who wanted to use it. And they're like, yeah, cool. We love the concept. We love the idea. We'll participate. But now the entire story is kind of switched, where they're reaching out to us all the time, like, hey, we want this now. Like, we kind of need it. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, so before we're like trying to sell it, and now they're like coming to us saying, hey, we need it. Which is, it's cool. That's the opportunity, is that now people are ready. They're eager. They're wanting for this, paradigm shift to happen, rather than passively waiting for it to just happen. Once they get their 2 weeks vacation, then they can think about it,
Definitely. It's changing times for sure. And we appreciate you taking the time to drop in and give us a little bit of an insight into seeds and all the energy and effort putting in to create some of that intention behind a system that we use every day, like currency. So thank you so much. Where can people find more information about seeds and the app that you guys have?
They can go to joinseeds.com, but mostly it's through our organizations and alliances. So what we're doing is we're empowering organizations to be able to bring on their communities. So like the Momentom Collective. So what we would do with you guys is actually give you an invite so you can invite your community. So everyone listening to this ought to actually go through you guys, because that's what creates the web of trust and earns you guys value. So each organization that brings in their community, want to give them value for bringing in their community. So we want to make sure that that value is being, equitably distributed throughout the whole movement, rather than trying to like capture it and centralize it again. That's not what we're trying to do. So what I'd really suggest is, like, after this, I think you guys are already in it. You guys already have an organization account and stuff. Yeah. So I would suggest that anyone listening to this reach out to you and ask for an invite. Or you can even create a mass invite and send it out to your community if so wish. And what's really cool is that you guys can ask the Seeds community for a campaign to actually reward some of your community for being on this journey with you so far, which is what some, movements and organizations have done. So they've actually put up a proposal request saying like, hey, we're X, Y, and Z company. We've been doing all these beautiful things. Like one is Love Out Loud. They've been teaching people how to like get in touch with their purpose, their passion, to like spread love in the world. And that's what that whole movement's about. So they showed up and then said, hey, our movement's been doing this. We're really dedicated to this transition. We're looking for, let's give each one of our community members 100 seeds to get going. That's a proposal they put up, and I'm sure it's going to pass. And then they're able to give those seeds out to all of their community members and help bring them in. So anyone listening to this that has a movement or an organization, the same opportunity extends to you. But I'd like to say that it's probably the best way for them to get, brought into this is actually through you guys, not through anything I would tell them to do.
Excellent. Well, that being said, we'll end the recording here, but we'll keep you on call for a little bit longer, if that's cool, to discuss a little bit more how we can help support this beautiful initiative. So thank you again for taking the time, Reiki.
Cheers.